This conference will now be
Hey, it's been
recorded.
a while since you've done that though.
Yeah, I think it only happened once. I think usually I don't learn my lesson in one try. It usually takes me a few, but I think I learned that one pretty quick.
That's because
So, but I had
everybody gave
some,
you crap about it for weeks afterwards.
yeah, and reminders even longer. So yeah, it's
It was
ingrained.
funny.
So yeah, Tom submitted a ticket a little while ago, right before the session, and he's having some files hanging in the memory. It looks like, well, on the ticket you're running Silk on an Android, but what's your primary? Is it a PC or a Mac that you're having these
I got a
issues on?
I got a Mac, and I don't know whether that's part of the problem. It's an old MacBook Pro.
Okay.
Um,
Are
and I
you
have
at
had some issues
V1?
with light burn, but it was something that they didn't even want to address. If I use the line trace, if I go to use line trace, it crashes light burn and won't do anything. But I tried deleting the files from within light burn last night, and that wouldn't work.
Hmm.
And I learned the hard way. I went to upload the file, and it said there wasn't room for it. Can it overwrite the previous file? And I answered yes, and figured when it's done, I'll delete some files on the controller.
Hmm.
And now I can't. It won't do anything. It just freezes up. So
Gotcha. Um, and is the keypad responsive enough that you could do that reset,
yeah,
back to
I
the
tried
factory?
that a couple times last night. And
Okay.
then when I recycle the machine, the files do come back up. But when I go, it's weird. There's like one, like it's only got 35 files on it, but like the last 34 and 35 say zero and they're blank.
Hmm.
I don't know whether that was the large file that I tried to upload last night that crashed it. But then
There.
when I go to move the cursor, it won't do anything. And then I
Okay.
get that message that there's no device connected.
And then that's in the control panel itself. You're trying to
Right.
manually.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
doing it right from
So
the
have you
control.
tried it through Lightburn to delete the files through Lightburn?
Yes. Yeah, I tried that last night, and it's weird. It says it's deleting, and then I get a little thing that it's refreshing the list, but then everything's still there, and it's still on the controller too.
I'm gonna post a link in the comments, and if I can find where the comments go, there they go in the chat. Um, and for right now, I know you may be running an older version of Mac, but for now, I would roll back down to 9.24, and there's some instructions here on how to do that in
Oh, on
Lightburn.
Lightburn?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
try it again. There's a patch release now for V1. There was some Mac with Big Sur over USB issues specifically,
Yeah, I'm on
but
El Capitan. It's an old laptop.
okay.
Right now, I have an iMac upstairs, but down by the laser,
Yeah,
my workshop, I got the old, I was running it off the laptop, so I didn't have to bring this down
yeah.
there. But
And I might even we might even take it back, and I can jump on with you after this session, and we can remote in and have a look. But I might even want to take you back to 9.20. I want to eliminate, not that there are any specific problems in Lightburn, but you know how software is. I just want to eliminate variables.
yeah,
So 9.20 was really good and really stable, and I think I might try it on yours if that 9.24 doesn't work.
okay.
Because but you may have, I mean, honestly, there may be a controller issue. Now, there is a time, there's a white connector that goes in the top of the controller, and that's for the HMI.
Okay.
That's the cord for the HMI. Sometimes those get out of whack. If you be sure to turn the machine off and just unplug that connector and
Plug it,
just kind of
plug it
look,
back
blow it out, plug it back in, make sure it's seated correctly, and
in.
see
Okay.
that it's not a communication issue between the control panel and the controller, the DSP itself.
Yeah, and this had happened once before a while back, but it allowed me to delete the files on the controller. It didn't
Hmm.
lock it up like this.
Hmm. Yeah, it
But
sounds
now
more
when
controller to me
if I
than
get that
Lightburn.
message from now on, I think I'll just stop and not try to send it. That was, I think I overloaded it too much.
Yeah, and I remember this happening before, and I think we were able to get through it. But I'm going to go back and see if I can find that other ticket
Okay, cool.
on that other instance. I don't think it's a physical controller problem, although it could be. I don't really think it's a Lightburn thing, but
I
I
think it's
do
a
want to.
memory problem.
Yeah.
I overloaded it just a little because it was an identical file, but I had added some more to it. I'm
Hmm.
trying to recreate that Japanese painting tsunami,
Hmm.
and I added a lot of detail to it. I did the picture, and then I did a line trace over it to highlight the wave and everything, and that made the file a little bit bigger. And I think it was just a little too much for the controller to handle. I
Gotcha.
shouldn't have tried to send it. I should have deleted it when I got that message.
Gotcha. But yeah, we'll get in there and see if we can get that cleared out, and hopefully that'll take
Cool.
care of it.
Thank you.
So absolutely, man.
So on the tail end of that, I'll jump in if you don't mind. Is there
Sure.
a file size limit that
The,
we can send to the controller?
the controller itself has 128 megs of onboard flash memory, I believe. So it's good to keep that tidy. Now, that said, that's actually quite large for the kind of that RD file that's going to it. Although, as Tom said, they can get pretty big, depending on what you're doing. But yeah, and there's functions normally in Lightburn that usually erase everything if you don't have a little ghost to jump in, like has happened in his case. It lets you manage all that stuff from the software. So
Is there a
you know,
way to increase that size?
no, those are soldered onto the controller. You'd have to get another controller that had more memory. A lot of people, it's not a problem to a lot of people because they send the files over to Lightburn almost like using Start, so they do fill it up, but then they just delete because all the files are saved in Lightburn. And unless you're doing a production thing where you have these, templates and you cut these all day long every day, and you don't want your operators getting in there messing with Lightburn and changing things. Then you can keep those files loaded on the controller and run them untethered, and that's kind of the purpose of that. But most people don't find the hardware memory limitation a problem because they just delete everything every, couple of days or whenever it starts getting full, and then they can always just resend the file they have saved as a Lightburn file.
Yeah, I'm new at this and hadn't learned that lesson yet. I've been doing a lot of photos and they take up a lot more space than
Sure.
an average file. So live and learn.
Sure, they do. But hopefully that'll be a quick, easy fix. So
Yeah, I hope so.
But yeah, welcome everybody. If you haven't been on here before, and if you have, thanks for coming back. And as it always works, if you guys have a question, just jump on in here and ask it, or we'll just sit around and talk about nonsense for a while. So help keep us straight with some good questions. So I guess I really am going to have to. Jim, you're on here all the time, and that's awesome. How about we send you a little swag, and you can make the curriculum for every week and put it over in the chat in case I fail.
Curriculum.
Yeah, I did put a thing for suggestions, for topics to clear the dead area. And one of them I know I can touch on is the electrical again for a minute. But I haven't had anybody, put any suggestions in. Of course, I don't plaster that link up everywhere either.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
There's been a few questions coming in about the main power, the 15 amp and the 20 amp and all that stuff. And it's not so much discerning which plug is which now. We got all of that sorted out because, we had that batch that went out that was incorrect. But people are wondering if they can just take the plug out of a 15 amp circuit and just put a 520R receptacle in there, a 20 amp receptacle. And the answer to that is a big no, because the reason they're keyed that way is so you can't run a device that can require 20 amps on a 15 amp circuit, because the wire won't support it. It's usually 14 gauge wire in a 15 amp, and it's got a 15 amp breaker. So you can't just change the breaker either, unless you want to get that wire hot in your wall and burn your house down. So I just wanted to bring that up again because we've had a few more questions about that. So a dedicated 20 amp 110 outlet, when you used to call an electrician and say, I need a dedicated 20 amp outlet 110, they would come in and they would put in a 20 amp breaker, and they'd run 12 gauge wire, 10 if it was beyond 100 feet or whatever, and put in the correct plug, the 520, and say, there you go, that'll be whatever. And now when you ask them that, it's like, I don't know if maybe they haven't brushed up on the code in a while or something. But sometimes it's not real clear. So anyway.
I've seen people too complain about the cost of it, and I'm like, you're spending $10,000 on a machine, and they're asking you to run 500 to 1,200, depending what part of this country you're in, to run a circuit. And you're living in a house that's a minimum of, let's say, 100,000 up to $750,000 on an average, depending what part of the country. You're saving your house. It ain't just your machine. You're saving your house.
Yeah, and you don't want to starve it, you know, for power either.
Well,
But
no, yeah, it's the other part
yeah,
of it. I'm just looking at the whole aspect of you're
sure.
investing very little to protect your own home.
Now, Bert had a question. He popped in the chat about the Nova 24 crumb trays, and I think I remember that. I talked to somebody on the phone about that. I'm trying to find out from China. I haven't gotten a response yet on if the crumb trays are coming in the Nova 24s now. There's a retrofit kit, and Robert did a video on it where you can get the kit and install the crumb trays. A lot of people just use baking sheets or those little cheap aluminum disposable serving trays and things like that. One of those to fit and just put that down there. But there is a you know, an OEM solution out there for that. I'll have to check, and I can update everyone on that when I find out for sure.
Well, I don't think they're coming with them yet. Mine
Okay.
is recently new.
Okay. And so they may not. They did say that if they do it, those will be the last. So I don't even know. I know that they've got the kit, so I know that eventually they'll put them on there. So at least I think. So, all right. Anybody else got any questions?
Yeah, I got several questions, Brian. How you
Okay.
doing?
Sure.
John?
Absolutely. Hey, John.
On the pass-through for the 24 and in the 35, what's the thickest you can run on the pass-through? I was watching some video guy had set the nozzle for, or the the lens for a 3/4, but he said he thought that's as thick as you could run through on the pass-through on the 24. Um, that's the
Yeah,
question.
there was a thing on the Nova 24 where the specification wasn't exactly right. We could actually get something thinner under there. I'm trying to look up the specs. It's been so long since I looked those up.
Yeah, it's thick. How thick? In other words, could you run 1 inch through there, or can only run 3/4? This guy kind of implied that 3/4 was about the limit.
Gotcha. Well, because of the focal distance, the stop, you know, because the head will only come up so much. So that's your major limitation on thickness going through the bypass is whether it'll fit under the lens and be able to focus or not. You see what I mean? So
Right. Yeah, I
if
understand. I was just curious what it was on the 24 and what it was on the
yeah,
35.
I measured it at one time, at least on my 35, and let me see if I can look up the specs because I think they might have fit. I'm on China's site looking up the specs. Um, Pass through. 0.08 is what they list all the way across the board. So just over a 1/4 inch.
Okay, so you couldn't run 1 inch through it. That's what I'm kind of curious.
Um,
Some things I make in 1 inch thick material. That's usually about the thickest.
gotcha. I don't think so, at least not how the lens is configured right now. You
Okay.
know, if you could shorten the lens barrel and that kind of thing, you know, there's a trick with the 4-inch lens that won't help here on the pass through, but you can get an extra couple inches of clearance if you take the tube off the 4-inch lens because it doesn't affect the actual lens focus or focal plane of the lens. It doesn't change the position of the lens, it just changes the position of the nozzle, and you can get that out of the way. I have heard of people, if your nozzle won't slide all the way up into the head, I've heard of people cutting the end off, and I think we even have a shorter one now for the 63s that will recess all the way, and that gives you an extra 10 millimeters, maybe, or 8 millimeters of clearance. So that might be a possibility to get. I think physically a 1-inch board will pass through the pass-through opening. It's just going to be a matter of if you can get your lens high enough to be able to get a good focus on it, and that may be possible with that other nozzle. I can do some checking on that. I thought I had taken some measurements off of mine at one time to determine the thickness. I'll look for the article.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that, Brian. You got my email there. If not, it's in the system.
Okay.
John
All right.
McFadden.
I'm going to make a note in my Post-its while I'm thinking about it.
And the other thing, is there any real picture of the footprint of what it really takes for a machine? I mean, I know there's some machine measurement, but you got to add the cooler to one side, and then you got to add a distance in the back for the ventilation. I'm trying to figure out if I can get the 35. It's going to be too big or not. I don't have a
Right.
certain space. So is there anything that really has a true, dimensional?
We don't have a floor plan per se, like a shop plan, you know, with everything laid out, you know, with recommended distances between them for airflow and such. We don't have something like that. And that might be something we could draw up, you know, get some But right now, I mean, I've got a 35, and of course I've got mine about 2 feet away from the wall because I get behind it a lot. But you could push it up against the wall. I'd say probably 8 inches close. You don't think so, Jim?
No, same thing happened earlier. What I was telling you about already happened.
Where you got kicked off?
Yeah, it says it's unsecure.
Well, you'll have to. I don't know, man.
I don't know what's going on.
You'll have to take that up with GoToMeeting.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but yeah, let me find out about the pass-through, and I do have your email. So
Okay, so you figure you need about 8 inches behind it. That's about the closest you can get to the wall. Somebody's raising their hand, or Tom's raising his hand. But okay, and the cooler, how big is the cooler? It's got to sit next to it just to figure out. Can it sit right next to it, or does it have to be off at a distance? Does it need airflow?
It's best to at least. I forget how much they say in there. I've got chiller dimensions on the outside, and I keep mine about 5 inches away. I keep about 5 inches on either side clear. And I have chiller dimensions somewhere, and it might be actually in the machine dimensions article. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to measure somewhere, see if I get it in there. I don't know.
I don't know if I put the chiller info in here or not. No, I didn't. I've got it somewhere. All right, hang on. You need pass-through info, and you need
Chiller measurements.
Can you hear me?
Not
yeah,
just
go ahead.
the square.
Jim's measuring.
It's 22 inches deep, 11 inches wide. With the handles, say 19.
That sounds
19,
good.
19 high. And that's allowing for the tubes coming out the back against the wall, or you got to add?
I was just getting ready to say that's not including the plug-in in the back. I would say depth-wise, safely give yourself room, 29 to 30 inches.
Okay. Thank you for measuring that, Jim.
What was the other measurement you guys was wanting since I wasn't on here? I got kicked.
Pass through for the 24 or the 35. What's the maximum you could pass through? He was saying online, it's
0.08 or
0.08. I was
0.8.
wondering if you could pass one through and adjust the lens or not, because somebody else said you couldn't adjust the lens much more than 0.75.
Yeah. You can take the stop ring loose so it'll fall down, and that way you'll get the maximum, embedment of the lens tube anyway. You'll get it as far up until it hits its physical stop inside the head assembly, and that'll be the best distance. You'll have to measure about 6 millimeters below the nozzle. That's the measurement we'd be looking for.
So that was the one that's still in question, whether you could get that.
Yeah, and I can do that one. I'll do that one and follow up with you. Okay, you got any more?
How hard is it to set up external air?
Plug
Easy.
the extra. Yeah, just it plugs into its own power source. So you have it on, just in the plug. It won't plug into the laser for power. So you'll just plug it in the wall, and it'll run autonomously. And then you'll have a secondary regulator dryer near the machine, so that you can keep it capped at 55 psi, which is the system max, and evacuate any moisture, trap any moisture that may be in there.
The only other thing I recommended doing, even on that, is before going into, the way my setup is having a drip leg. It's just an extra added bit of security before your air dryer. Because that way your moisture is going to hit that drip leg before your dryer will work more efficiently. Because I'm running 2 dryers, 2 drip legs, but I also got a paint booth. And I've got a long run coming from the compressor to the laser. So it comes out of that, and before it goes into the dryer, I've got a drip leg, and then into the dryer, and then into that. It just helps if you're doing a lot of long runs and you've got temperature variations in your shop, and if your compressor's getting pounded to death.
Mm-hmm.
So Jim, do you have an auto drain on your tank?
What do you mean by auto drying? You talking about?
So on the bottom of my tank, I've got a plug, and you can install an auto drain on that activates on a schedule you set, like every 30 seconds or every minute, and it'll open that drain and help evacuate water to keep water from building up in the tank.
Yeah, no, I don't have that. I just drain my tank daily. But the thing is even getting water in the tank, it's you get that heating up of your compressor and the motor and stuff. And I've tried doing that multiple times a day, just draining the tank, and you can still get blow by coming in
Right.
from your tank. And I just know that these lenses are bad with moisture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up running some of my tubes through the attic, so it comes out of an air conditioned space through the attic and then back in an air conditioned space, and you do get some moisture. Even though I drain the tank, I have an automatic drain too, where actually I turn it on a couple times a day. But you do get that moisture, like I say, if you don't have a little stub.
Hmm.
So what size airline did you go to run to the machine? Is it a quarter, 3/8?
It's 6 millimeters what the spec is. It's the quick, but I just put a link in the chat, and it's got an article that shows all the parts and how to connect it and everything. So
So if you've got a long run, you can sort of cheat your air volume too by running a bigger hose into
yeah,
your going into your air dryer. Plus, two, it gives it better time for the air to cool off, so that way you don't have as much problem with condensation coming in, and it gives actually your drip leg and the other a better chance of working as well. If that makes
Okay,
sense.
thanks.
mhm. All right.
I just know that from running a paint booth and having issues with moisture and lacquer because it's just about as bad.
Yeah, I imagine that's something I couldn't do. I can't pinstripe. I can't put a straight line down with vinyl or a paintbrush or anything else. And I worked at an automotive kind of specialty shop for a while, and they did a little bit of body work and painting and that kind of stuff. And no, you wouldn't want me doing it. You wouldn't want me painting your fence, probably.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do pinstriping or not. That's for young guys that's got good eyes and hands that don't shake.
Right, right. So, all right.
or an
Well,
old
cool.
or an old timer has been smoking pot for a while.
Right, right.
I guess I'm curious everybody's opinion too. I was looking at the 35s, that what's it, the 100, the 80 and the 100 watt, and the 100 watt's just as long as the 51, really, when you time you had the extension for the tube.
Mhm.
So is the 80 watt enough? Somebody was saying you got your own air, you get a little more out of it. I don't know. I'm kind of curious.
Well, I've got an 80. I've got a 3580. And again, I'll preface that by saying I don't make anything. I don't cut out things for people. And, I don't do it for a business. I play with lasers for a business. So my perception of this whole thing may be a little different. But as far as for the stuff that I do, I can cut 3-inch foam. I can cut 3/4 inch acrylic. I can cut 1.5 inch hardwoods. I mean, none of that's a problem.
With an 80, you cut
Yeah.
1.5.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And on most of that I do in my 2-inch lens, and just external air. So it's a little slower, of course. So if
yeah.
if you need to get the product out and part of your ROI is time, then you may want to look at a higher power one so that you can just realize that ROI a little faster.
No,
But
time's not the issue. I was just trying to, get what would do most
yeah,
stuff.
because if you get an 80 watt, it'll come with a C90. I mean, not a C90. I forget if I think it's a W2 90 watt RISI tube and a 100-watt power supply, and it'll produce at least 88 watts at the third mirror.
Well, that's
But
the
cutting
80 watt.
That's the 80 watt.
and cutting power in 2 passes. I did
Wow.
that.
I
Playing.
didn't know you could cut that thick. That's pretty
Yeah, it's a
good.
2x4, and I mean it wasn't that bad of a burn. That was just 2
Yeah,
passes, and I didn't even have it ramped up that high.
yeah. I cut a 2x4 a couple weeks ago just for the heck of it. So yeah, it can be done. It's just a little slower.
That's when I
How often,
first got it, and I wanted to see if it would do it or not.
that's pretty impressive. How often do you have to get behind your machine? You got to get in there to clean mirrors, or I'm just curious, how often you got to move it out to get behind it?
If you can get to both sides, you can generally get to the mirrors and stuff, except maybe the beam combiner. That needs a little bit of maintenance. You may want to open the lid, for where the tube bay is and check on that every once in a while. There's a PM schedule that shows all that, and you could kind of gauge, but it's
You're gonna
got
need,
wheels too, so
yeah.
you can just roll it forward. So
I mean, I've got 17 inches behind mine because of running to 8-inch right out of it with the elbows, and that there in itself leaves enough room. I don't have to move it. to get back behind it to do anything.
Okay, thanks for your input, everybody.
And that's on a 35, so it's
Yeah, I was going to say something earlier when you were talking about the 35 100 or whatever. You know, I'm new to this. I mean, I just ordered a 63, so I'm green all the way. But from being on here, because I'm on here almost every week, and in the chat groups and all that stuff, you know, a lot of them say, you know, if you go to the 35 100, if you have the money, you might as well go to the 51 because it's gonna kind of make it awkward because of the tube so long. I just don't know what kind of space you have or not, but if the tube's sticking out the side and you're not gonna be able to put anything really over there where it's at too much anyway, then if you have the money and you want to, you know, a lot of them are opting for the 51.
Yeah, I looked at getting the tube, and I talked to Brian already about the cooler extension to put the cooler, because the cooler's on the left side of the machine, but the tube is on the right side of the machine extension. So I'd already asked him about that, thinking that if it's sticking out, you could use that for your cooler space at the same time and not lose both sides.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And here's how close I've got mine put together. I don't know how hard it is to judge, but there's only about, at the time this was taken, this is 6-inch hose, and it's almost ducting, and it's almost touching the wall in the back. So
Oh,
I've probably
cool.
only got about 8-inch. I mount my fan up high, so I don't have to worry about it being down there, you know, and I can maintain it easily. And then I've got about enough space in between to sit the chiller. But the leg on that Odin is kind of open and lets airflow out that direction, so I can have it kind of close to that machine. But and then to the left of it is my garage door. You know, like I can't even barely squeeze through there. So I've got mine packed in pretty tight, and it does well.
Okay, thanks. Really appreciate it.
And that's in the article for venting, and I don't think I've posted that, so I'll stick that in the chat also, just in case you want to look over the venting article. All right. Well, if anyone else has anything, like I say, feel free to speak out.
Hey, Brian, what's the latest on the ports, China and Los Angeles shipping? I'm kind of getting ready to pull the trigger here and wondering just how far out I'm falling, just how bad this is getting.
Is Grant on here? Did I already ask that? It's
Grant's
bad.
in hiding.
Yeah, it's bad. There was an article that somebody linked the other day that there are ships just sitting out in the middle of the bay, just sitting there because they can't get them in and get them processed and everything at the port. And I think Grant said that they've pretty much tacked a month onto everything. And there's not a darn thing we can do about it. And we can't change distributors. We can't call anybody else. There's only a few people that bring containers from China to the United States.
Well, that with the whole COVID thing in China. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I bet we could round up a few people to get a boat and motor on out there and grab a few.
Well, part of the problem right now is actually in China. They've already closed one port.
Right.
So they're waiting to see if it's going to happen anymore or not.
Yeah. Yeah. The logistics is a nightmare. And I wish there was more. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. That's why I like to defer it to someone whenever possible.
Move the manufacturing.
Right. Yeah. That's why I'm thinking about pulling the trigger, but it's like,
Yeah.
well, geez, you know, if I got to wait too long, maybe I'd be better off waiting for it to free up before I order, you know.
And, you know, and I'm not sales and I'm not admin, but, you know, I'm thinking to myself, would it be better in the long run if the list is getting that long to just stop? Just say, no, we're not going to put anybody in that kind of pain. We're going to get caught up. But people still want to wait in line 4 months for a Thunder Laser. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
And the flip side is the longer you wait to order, the longer it's going to take to get here.
yeah, that's true too, because the supply lines aren't going to just open up and go, oh, and let your laser come through anytime soon.
Yeah, New Year's Eve, and I got mine on
It's a catch-22.
20.
So,
It was almost 5 months. The problem here too, I'm in Charleston and we're a shipping port here, and there's a shortage. Like we had that gas line thing last month or 2 months ago. They're short of containers for one. There's a big shortage of the shipping
I've heard of
containers.
that.
Shortage of drivers too.
It's because they're making houses out of them now.
Yeah.
There was a couple years back. you could buy a container for $200. The world was flooded with them, and everybody was trying to get rid of them because they didn't want to park them on their lot. I actually went to sea for a living. I actually was captain of a container ship for many years,
Nice.
as
Oh,
well as
nice.
many other ships. But I went to sea for 38 years, so I was in that merchant marine business. But yeah, they were stacked all over the world. They couldn't get rid of them. Nobody wanted them.
Yeah, my buddy right now has got 2 of them sitting out behind his shop. He's using them for storage.
They're all
Yeah.
being used for bunkers and apartments.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's a sore topic, and it makes it sore for me because there's really literally nothing that we can probably do about it.
My thoughts are is if you're going to get in line, if you know you're definitely getting one, place your order now because you're going to spend the deposit no matter what. If you order it now, order 6 months for now, and they're not going to bill you the rest of it if you're waiting on the end. If you're not financing, you're just paying cash. They're going to bill you 30 days out before it's here anyways.
Yeah, I guess that was, could you maybe elaborate on that? Because that's probably what I'm going to do.
So yeah, you can get your name on the list with $1,000 deposit. At least this is the way it did work. I've been out of that realm, out of that wheelhouse for a year or so. But they would secure a deposit and get your name on the list, and that way that'd get your spot. And then when the machine is a couple of weeks away or 3 weeks away from actually hitting your door, then they'll contact you and go ahead and settle up. We don't ask for it until they hit the U.S. So if it sinks in the middle of the ocean, you don't have to pay us for it, I guess.
Good thing.
I didn't get my balance until it hit Los Angeles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we've got our hands on it at our logistics place before we finally say, all right, give us our money. At least that's the way I interpret the way it works. And that gives you a little,
Well, that's kind of the way it should.
little wiggle room and everything.
The next question in that same line is parts. You guys have a pretty good part supply, or you're in the same circus arena with that?
I just got another order, and that'll be a perfect time for me to kick this on for a minute. This is our supply chain article, and this shows, I think it's going to show up, where everything comes from and how to deal with it. So all of the parts like motors and wires and drivers and things like that are all here with me in Tennessee. And I can get that stuff out pretty quickly. And I've got a pretty big inventory, but this tells a little bit about how everything works. But anything you would need from a warranty standpoint, I'll link that in the thing, would come from me. Or if I have to get something from Amazon Prime, I'll do it if I can get it there fast. We're agile when it comes to support. And I have a little bit of latitude, as far as that goes. So we generally like to think in getting parts in days, not in getting them in weeks. So
Brian just needs to get a shipping container in his backyard and turn it into a warehouse.
yeah, the HOA wouldn't like that, or it would have already been done. It'd been a double wide.
Oh,
sure.
you're in an HOA. Oh, yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Well, I live out
Yeah, you are screwed.
If I could put it underground and get away with it, I would.
You got to get the right trim and siding. The right trim and siding might make it work.
Right. So, but yeah, anything like that related to the machine operation. Now, some of the, we've got lenses on our e-commerce site and mirrors, so they're more of a click and order thing. It used to be you have to contact sales and they'd send you a quote and you'd agree to it, and then they'd send you a bill and then you'd pay it. Then they'd send you the lens. So we streamlined that a little bit. So. All right. Hey, Danny, how's it go? It looks like Tamara's joining us. It looks like she has a question and her mic's off.
That is my MO, man. I will be talking and nobody can hear me.
No worries.
I just wanted to John's question about the chiller. I set up the 24 and I reversed the setup from the images that are online and people shared, because I too was like, I want the chiller and the tube that sticks out on the same side, so the foot space would be kind of lined up.
Okay.
But the tubing was not long enough to put it to the other side of the machine.
There's an extension kit. I already asked about that. Brian
There was. Oh, okay.
You can go up to
Didn't
2
get
feet,
that.
you're telling me. 2 feet you can go. There's an extension for 2 feet, I think.
Yeah, 2 meters is what they are.
2
The
meters, I'm
stock
sorry.
one, Yeah, the stock ones are 1 meter. Um, and I've got an article on it extending the chiller. Let me pop this up real quick and we'll show you. And I've got links to Amazon to the stuff and then links to the special cable. So the first thing you'll need, and we don't stock this because you can get it really quick and really inexpensively on Amazon. So this is the tubing, and this is about the size. You need about 16 feet. That might be a little more, but this is it. And
but there was another part to it. Are you going to show me another part? The black, there's a black cable. I don't have it right here where I am. So
sure.
Yeah, he's looking it up. Yeah.
I'm gonna put the link to this part in the chat also. That way you can just click the link and it'll take right to it.
Okay.
It would be nice if Thunder would make this the default value.
What's that?
Yeah.
It would be nice if Thunder made this the default value.
Oh, for the cable size?
Yeah.
I could ask them about that. There's only really one instance when that normally gets extended, and that's on the 35s with the 100-watt tube. Because on the 51, even that kit, that's not enough to get it to the other side. So
right.
I don't know if they'll change everything just for that one machine, but it'd be worth a try. I could see if they can, the cable itself wouldn't cost that much to double the length, and they're already doing the work. So it may be something they go, okay, we'll see about that, but I'll submit it to them.
Thanks for the input, Tamara.
What's that?
Thanks for the input. I guess you got something back out of that because I kind of asked that question already the other day.
I didn't think to ask it. I was like, I just want everything over there. And then we had friends come over and help us set it up on the stand that my husband made. And whenever we put it on, I was like, oh, the chiller's not going to work. So we had to call him back over and say, okay, can you come pick up this big old sucker and flip it around?
Yeah, it's heavier with water in it too. So.
Yeah. So. But
yeah, that'll get you taken care of on that stuff. Yeah. Now you don't have to buy the cable if you happen to be handy with a soldering iron. That's just a 2-wire cable, and polarity doesn't matter. You could literally cut it in half with a knife and connect some speaker wire between it, and it would be okay. Buying the cable's probably better, but yeah. For those that want to take on that DIY kind of challenge, it's there.
That doesn't void your warranty?
That probably wouldn't, because if the cable failed, the worst thing that would happen is the laser would lock down and not let you do anything because it would be an alarm state. So it's fail secure.
All right.
Very good. I enjoy all the webinars. I don't get to watch them live because typically I'm working and can't step away. So
gotcha. I'm glad you could jump in here. So.
Yeah, good.
Cool. How about you, Danny? What's going on with you, man?
No, it's good to see John. We've known each other for some time now, and you talk about artists with a CNC machine. He is one.
Awesome.
So he understands this stuff and helpful to me too.
Great. Well, you'll probably like the 3D relief stuff you can do with the laser then, if you've ever done any STL files or converted any to Grayscale Depth Map. You can do that on these lasers too.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Somebody mentioned that, but is there a good video on how to do that? Kind of curious. Somebody mentioned it to me about that. Because Danny and I both using CNCs and doing stuff.
Gotcha. So I've got an article. Pretty much anything you need to find will be in this.
Okay. Just got to hunt hard.
Well, let's see. 3D. That'll get me there.
Brian did a fishy one.
Yeah.
I was playing around with it tonight. It's cool.
That's the one on acrylic, and I've got the light burn file and everything. And then I've got one. There's a related one here. This one's on natural wood, and I actually burned all the way through on that one. It was totally accidental.
Actually, I thought the burn through actually looked pretty cool.
I did too. I liked it, but I've got the full workflow videos, how to do it, and how to set it up, files and everything.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that. I didn't know if you could really do that or not.
Yeah, and I did it with fiber last week on a machine you're not supposed to do it with.
We'll take a regular STL model in that light program, whatever it is.
Well, now Lightburn you'll have to convert it to a Grayscale Depth Map. You have to use Vectric Spire or something like that to take the STL and convert it to a Grayscale Depth Map. and then you use the Grayscale Depth Map. I thought the common thing for CNC was using a Grayscale Depth Map to get those 3D reliefs.
Not really. Not if it's already an STL. You bring it as an STL and it's already.
Okay, so the CNC software will natively accept an STL. The Lightburn won't, but you can convert it to a Grayscale Depth Map, and then Lightburn can use the Grayscale feature to be able to do that and vary the power with the gradations. So,
Okay, figure out what
which is the
program
same
would do
thing
that.
as adjusting the height, I guess, in the CNC. You know, the power determines the depth, so it'll adjust that in real time as it goes across.
What program has people been using to do that? Well, I don't
Lightburn.
think it's. No, the
To
Grayscale.
convert the STLs, Aspire.
Really? I'll have to ask them about. They're pretty good about it if you send them a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should be able to convert an STL to a Grayscale Depth Map, and they look goofy. You know, they look like an X-ray. So, and then those will just run. You run them in pass-through mode and run them. Well, it's all in there. I did the workflow and showed all my settings, and that was like my third try ever. So it's not hard to do because I actually thought it was good enough I'd publish it. So
did
John,
that allow you to take a regular picture and turn it into a 3D image?
I'm sorry?
Did that allow you to take a regular picture and turn it into a 3D image to engrave it?
It's kind of like a regular image. Let me go back to that
I had to
article.
start with a 3D grayscale image. I was trying to do a pick of destiny. I'm a musician, so I was trying to make little guitar picks.
So the file ends up when you take an STL and convert it. Where is it?
It's another name for the file that becomes.
I mean, it's that. That's what it looks like, and it's just a bitmap. It's just
You don't
a
have your screen
Grayscale
up,
depth
Brian.
map. What?
You don't have your screen up.
Oh. They look like that. And you can do a Google search for Grayscale Depth Map, and all that'll come in. But Vectric Aspire will convert an STL to a Grayscale Depth Map. And there's
Yeah,
a
I have to
couple.
look into it. They've never done it. I guess. I guess it is a grayscale on the one page, depending how you look at it.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, they'll look goofy like that. And then the darkest areas will produce the most power. It depends on your power scale, how you set it up. So.
Cool.
I guess in the 2D view, it is a grayscale map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's weird.
Blurry and fuzzy, you know.
Yeah.
I guess that's for the power.
Yeah,
differentiation.
Yeah, and you make multiple passes to be able to get that depth. You know, so I run them a minimum, I think, of 4 passes. You know, so then the more passes you make, the more relief you'll get. You know, because the deeper you'll go.
Was that on acrylic?
I did, yeah. That one was on that 3/4 inch acrylic that I was messing with, and then I've got one on natural wood as well. And I don't have this dialed in very good, so there's some striations where I don't have my line interval and my focus and all just perfect. You know, you can see, and this won't be as smooth as doing this with CNC. It won't be like you took sandpaper to it. I mean, you know, when we pull a 3D relief off of a CNC, it's smooth. And this one will always have some striations. The Odin outputs a lot higher definition beam, and the striations are less pronounced, but they're still even there, even with the Odin. But it's minimal, but it's a neat effect. So, and probably adjustable if I defocus a little bit and, you know, play with it a little more. Like I said, that was my 3rd attempt. So I still am a novice at even trying that. I just basically paint by numbers on this kind of stuff.
Brian, by the way, I've been dealing with Piedmont Plastics, and you can call them and they will sell their the cutoffs at a reasonable price. You probably get 3 times what you would have to normally pay if you bought a sheet or this, that, and the other. But that's tremendous to help to practice on different sizes and thickness, colors, and things like that. And it's reasonable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to scavenge around.
It's Piedmont Plastics.
Oh, Piedmont. Okay.
I've heard a lot about them. I've seen their name circle around quite a bit on the laser forums and stuff.
We live
Piedmont right here in Houston.
they're all over. We thought we live in the Piedmont section of North Carolina, and we thought it was named after that, but it's not. They got distribution places all over the United States. The Piedmont Plastics, and they're good to work with.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I used to scavenge around the slate and tile places, and granite shops, to see if they had any pieces that weren't any good for them, but might have been good to make something else out of. But it's hard to find one of those that's already cut to shape unless you got a water jet or something. Sometimes they're a chisel. I'm no sculptor either, so that would probably turn into a mess.
I got a friend that owns a granite company, and they throw so much granite away. I had him cut me squares one time. I was going to use it for putting sandpaper on to sharpen my chisels, and it works pretty good. But they just throw the stuff away. A trash can's full of pieces of granite.
Yeah.
So if you've got a granite place, somebody might be able to get some pieces out you can do something with.
You can also find some gold if you happen to have a big pet store or a place that makes custom aquatic enclosures or tanks. Most of that stuff they use is cast acrylic, and they have it shaped and molded and into crazy shapes and stuff. And you'll find all kind of interesting odds and ends and stuff from them too.
Yeah, if he's living close to a custom aquarium shop, that'd be ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, I got lucky. I got a buddy that bought a building that used to be a countertop company, and they left like an acre and a half of stone there.
Wow.
I mean, stacks of cutouts that are taller than me. So I filled up my car like 5 times, all different kinds of granite and stuff.
Sure.
Tom, are you doing much granite work? I mean,
I'm just starting to experiment with it. I'm just kind of getting the business going here, and I've mastered wood and glass, and now I'm working on stone, and I bought some acrylic last week from JDS. I'm going to try that this week, hopefully. I got lots of scraps to play with.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a good find.
So, all right. Well, if anybody has anything, be sure and let me know. And
I don't know if anybody, I figured Brian might have some information. See, I bought the 63, and then I see all these people having a hard time getting the 51s and everything. And I'm like, man, I wonder how hard it's going to be to get that 63 off the truck.
They've been taken down before off the truck, but a lot of times on a 63, you might want something around like a forklift or something. And whoever's talking with you about the machine would have more information on that than I do, because those kind of questions.
Right. Yeah, I know it's logistics, but they went on here today. It's just seeing all the stuff and everybody's having problems. I'm like, damn, I should have went with the 51 just to make it a little easier, because I was on the.
They must be having a little bit of problems with those too, which has never happened in years and years and years. So I don't know exactly what's going on.
So there's aren't that much easier.
I think they're just lazy and don't want to take the risk, man. I get it, but if they'll let me get up there, I'll load my own,
Right.
It's not rocket science.
I posted a video yesterday. I was either a 63 or 51 because it would barely fit out the back of the truck. But it was
a 51
truck driver, and she got it off by herself. They should
show that laughing at that.
Drivers shame them.
You can hear the lady in the background saying, "Be careful, be careful."
Like a 45-second video. I wish they had shown the whole thing, because man, this little girl's up there with the pallet jack and just like got that thing off the truck.
She was a tiny little thing too.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's the way it does work.
Game them into it.
Largely the 51s. That's one of the most popular models, and we do see you see a lot of that on there, probably because of the makeup of the product line, but also, there's a whole bunch that go fine. And every once in a while they'll post it, and that's so great to see, because it's despair when you look at the rest of them.
Yeah.
What they need to
I'm
do is
still
just
kicking
get
myself for not spending the extra to get to 51.
Well, that's all right. You'll be expanding before too long, and you'll be needing another one.
Oh.
What they need to do is just get with a national tow truck company and just start, once they hit locals, just set it up with flatbed services, and it would stop a lot of that crap.
when I was in the copier and office automation industry, there's a couple of specialized, white glove LTL hot shots that handle that kind of thing, and it's for sensitive equipment. So their drivers are trained a little more on protecting things and covering up the glass and how to, put everything together and keep it where it needs to be. And we had even looked at maybe doing those, and we're in looks, but honestly, I mean, right now the problem's not even the US side of the logistics. It's that everything's bottlenecked at the port and they're all just sitting out there floating around. So,
We
yeah,
need more ports.
we need more ports and containers and people.
And
Yeah.
just take a couple extra days, drive around the US and come in on the East Coast.
It's
That was
more than a couple days.
I waited for weeks when it was in the
People don't realize that from let's say San Diego or even the West Coast LA to Panama Canal is 3,000 some miles, which is the same distance it is from Norfolk, Virginia to Gibraltar to Europe, 3,000 miles, plus or minus 200 or 300.
Yeah.
It's 10 days steaming from LA to Panama, and then you got to come up with Panama back to the East Coast, which is at least 3. So you're talking 13 days steaming, even on a ship that can do 20 knots, which that's about all you're going to get. So it's a little longer than people think. That's a really long distance down the canal and back.
Yeah. That's
nautical
good
trivia.
insight.
Little trivia.
Yeah, that's good information. And if we could maybe put a video together with all of these tidbits of information and what actually goes on behind the scenes, I think that would be neat. But I don't know how we would accomplish that one.
Yeah.
Because I think there's 5 or 6 of us at Thunder, and we just run lean and mean, and we never stop.
Energizer
With the
bunnies.
punches,
Energizer bunnies.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
guess.
I told my old lady the other night when I was thinking about it, I was like, man, if you bought a bed that you can get the thing on and off with, that'd be kind of a good little hustle. Get you a little forklift, and I'm in Houston area, so I mean, everybody's buying them all over, and Houston surrounding areas, man, you charge whatever, go over there, make sure you set up with the delivery, and they'll be there about the time you get there, drop it off, put it right there in the driveway up close to the thing, and you're done,
Yeah, that's the way we like it to work. So I don't know.
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, though.
Yeah, a lot of times I got machinery because I have a shop that's around back and you can't get the truck around back no matter what. So a lot of times I've had the truck get it low enough to put it in my pickup truck and then drive it around and skirt it off on a ramp. I'm using pretty heavy machinery. I got a 24-inch planer that's 1,000 pounds or better. And that's how I got it off. I put it in the pickup truck and drove it, got the guy's lift to bring it halfway down and slid it over and took it around. So sometimes that works too. That's another trick.
Yeah. A lot of people are getting the rollbacks like you were talking about, like somebody had mentioned, to assist with that. So
yeah, the flatbed worked perfect for me. I have like an S-shaped driveway, and I'm out in the woods, so it's gravel. And I had him meet up the road, and he raised the back of the flatbed to the height of the 18-wheeler, and the driver just rolled it right on the flatbed, and the guy dumped it right where I wanted it in my garage.
Wow.
It was all cost me $50.
That was a good $50.
Wow. Well spent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And he ordered a sign for his shop from me.
Oh, look at there. You got your money back.
Yeah, that's a good deal. So,
Yeah.
well, does anybody have any last minute questions? We got about 6 more minutes or so, and I probably ought to jump over here. I got this big crate of inventory and people waiting on some stuff, so I got to go through it and check it in and put it on the shelf and send it right back out. So, if
I've
anybody's
got a question about alignment. I was noticing this weekend, just happened to look over at one of my mirrors and noticed that my little red dot is probably, it's still almost dead center, but it's low. It's probably halfway between center and the bottom of the mirror.
Okay.
But left to right, it's pretty close.
Gotcha.
Is that something I need to worry and go ahead and realign that?
Well, the red dot is typically not an indication of how your beam alignment is because they come from 2 different sources. So just because your red dot's off is not an indication that your laser beam is off, and vice versa. Just because the red dot is on, dead on, doesn't mean that your laser can't get out of alignment. So I would do a pulse test and just spot check your alignment, which is basically stick a piece of tape on mirror 1, pulse it at a low power, see if it's centered, then go to number 2, and without actually aligning anything, basically go through the alignment procedure just to pulse the machine and pop some tape on all the corners so that you can verify that everything's lined up. If it is, then you can probably just realign the red dot and walk it into the beam. So that's always the first thing, is to make sure that the laser beam itself is perfectly calibrated. And then you come back at the very end and you calibrate the red dot to the laser beam, if that makes sense. Actually walking the red dot back in is the last step.
Well, what got me thinking about this whole thing was that cut and print feature on Lightburn. And I saw a video how somebody was explaining on how to use it, and how his laser just dropped down perfectly into the wood that was already cut, and basically disappeared when he lined it up. And I was wondering about using that. Then I noticed that off, so I was just curious about that part. So I'll work on that tonight.
Well,
the second
red dot aside, you can cut for, say, a 2" by 2" square and measure it and see how it comes out, and see if it measures 2 inches by 2 inches, minus kerf, minus half the kerf on all 4 sides.
Right.
And if it doesn't come out 2 by 2, then your machine's not in calibration. You see what I mean? If you tell it to do 2 by 2 and it doesn't output 2 by 2, that would be more affected by the print and cut feature about being off. The alignment of the beam being off itself would lead to more things, probably like perceived power loss, not cutting through, the nozzle getting hot, beam deflection, things like that.
Okay. Well, I had a second issue too. Was the other day I put a project on the machine, walked into the kitchen, got a cup of coffee, walked back in there, and there wasn't a fire on the wood, but my tubing had melted in half, and the little fitting I had up there for the little splitter for the what's that air adapter that the one that shoots at it from the side, that little Y was just sitting there on fire.
Yeah. Well, you definitely had a fire.
I definitely had a fire. I had my air and everything was working.
Did it cross between the laser beam? I burned a set of my wires up one time on a pressure monitor because the beam, it crossed the beam's path. Was that the case? Like maybe it?
No. I've got it set to where it was melted at was up at the very top, where at the very top of the head where I cut it, and I put a one of those little hex Ys, so so that one would go back to the nozzle where it normally goes, and the other one went to the enhancer. But it wasn't anywhere near the beam itself. Everything is held high, and my air pressure was on high at that point because it was doing a cut. And
okay, I was going to ask about that, because sometimes if you use start, there's a sequencing issue where you may tell it to be on high and it won't. It'll go to low. That's why we always use send. So that's what I was going to ask, if you use shift, whether you use start or send or shift.
No, I always send it to the laser first and then start it from the laser.
Okay.
But my question on that, I mean, I got all that fixed and everything, but my question was, where is the fire detector thing? I couldn't figure out where that was at.
It's on the back side of the head, on the gantry, kind of behind under the drag chain.
Oh, it's like a silver thing that hangs down.
All right, I'll take a look.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it here, I think. Let's see. That one is mounted directly on the machine, though. It looks like. Wait, is that on the gantry? Is that the back of the gantry?
Mine's on the gantry, right in the center of it.
It's right in the center of the gantry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that little bitty thing right there is actually the heat sensor. That little thing sticking out right there, but it's mounted underneath the gantry, about in the middle. So,
When I was tempering
Get
up
that-
a air system, my tube got burned between the second and the third mirrors, like you were saying, Brian, up above.
Oh yeah, from it hitting getting in the beam.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing will sneak up on you. You forget it's there. So yeah, I chewed a couple of my wires in half with that one time. It got hung around that mirror on the end, so that wasn't good. Well, all right, guys. I guess I'm going to jump off of here. And Tom, I'll get with you. Let me run inside for just a minute and make sure I didn't have any deliveries while this stuff was going on.
home. Do whatever you got to do.
And I'll hit you back here in just a few minutes, and we'll jump on and have a look at that file thing, and then
Cool.
we'll go from there. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody, and I guess we'll see you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All righty. Take care.
Have a good one, everybody.
Take care.